Kaduna-based Islamic scholar Ahmad Gumi has asked the Department of State Services to either charge his aide Tukur Mamu to a court or release him from detention. According to a publication, Daily Trust newspaper, Gumi said this during his weekly preaching at Sultan Bello Mosque on Saturday. Mamu, who is also the publisher of Desert Herald, negotiated the release of persons abducted on a train to Kaduna in March 2022. The cleric implored the Secret Service to take the publisher to court to face trial, adding that keeping him in custody amounts to terrorism. Okay, Frank Tietie, a Rise analyst and lawyer, joins us now to look at these issues. Let me just start straight. Frank, very warm welcome to Newsnight. And the detention of Manu has been described as an act of terrorism. How does that, synchronize with the law?
When the DSS fails to address the public on the deprivation of a citizen's liberty, you can be sure that there will be a lot of conjectures. But under our law, particularly the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, sadly, the detaining authority can actually hold a Nigerian citizen for a maximum of 56 days without being charged. That's the position of the law, even though we have decried it several times because it's under the principle of remand.
But the law is the law.
Yes.
If it's in the statute,
yeah, because
so they're still within
yes,
legality.
We were all here when former President Goodluck Jonathan signed it into law. So that's the law. So they haven't really exhausted that time, but that period yet. But the procedure is what's really funny, because the detaining authority has to approach the court secretly. It's called ex parte technically, without the knowledge of the detainee or anybody, and they gets an order to continually detain the suspect. But you see, the idea that, which is what human rights activists have always criticized detaining authorities, that you don't just proceed to carry out an arrest when you have not actually got sufficient evidence to prosecute the suspect or charge him to court.
The FBI won't do that.
Yes,
they would have amassed all the evidence. It could take years and everything. Record you, film you, whether at parties or occasions or whatever, and before
Yeah, and then when after going through that painstaking process, and a suspect usually admits, because when he sees the daunting unassailable evidence. So, but in a situation where you first of all go and arrest somebody on a mere suspicion, and then you go and start looking for evidence.
Can we really call it mere suspicion? Really, especially if you look at Mamu. I have taken time to study, what we know so far, because like you have alluded to, the DSS is yet to really let us in onto what they have against him and the charges that will be laid against him. We're all speculating that it might be terrorism related issues, but in that kind of situation where we know he has been involved in negotiations, especially as it concerns those who were abducted in that ill-fated Abuja to Kaduna train, for the DSS to have arrested him. Yes, we've seen all the cry from the human rights lawyers, and even the person who speaks on his behalf, Sheikh Gumi, saying that, this is terrorism against him. But at the end of the day, can we really, blame the DSS so much for how this whole thing is going without letting us in?
He wasn't arrested in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. He was arrested by the international police, and it depends on whatever submissions that the Nigerian authorities give to Interpol. Again, it's important that we take citizens' right to liberty very very seriously in our country. This we against them mentality among Nigerian citizens, that law enforcement is against them, is because of the way they are treated like this. When you just arrest someone, keep him in detention, no explanation, no rationale, and then not charging to court secretly. So it gives a feeling liberty is the most important right to a citizen, apart from the right to life. And so the thing here is about kidnapping. So let us not even bring in terrorism. Certain persons were kidnapped, and then he's accused of, and this is unfortunate to think that there are conjectures being drawn from media reports when the police or the state secret service in this case should have explained. So we're in a democracy. If we keep this attitude of just depriving citizens of rights, it actually creates further problems. And I think the war on insurgency that we are facing actually as a result of the mismanagement of the rights of Mohammed Yusuf. And it's important that we even the suspect himself is satisfied that his rights are being recognized. And that's how we become patriotic, knowing that law enforcement is not actually against our people, it's not against us, but actually it is working to protect the larger majority of Nigerians. So what's the point? If Mamu has done anything, you see, and this is one responsibility that needs to be carried out by law enforcement. So long as a matter has attained some kind of media report, I mean, or take it as a point of responsibility, even at local police level, to address the press. We see it happening in other democracies, but in our own case, we just you can't be an accuser and at the same time be a judge. To deprive a citizen of his liberty,
but they are
put him in
the
detention,
confines of the
and
law,
then you are not charging
what
to
you
court.
have alluded to. They are with, but at the end of the day, we are in the realm of speculation, so we can't dwell too much on it. At the end of the day, we wait until the DSS are able to charge him with anything, and when that gets to court, we'll have this conversation. But let's quickly talk about ASU and the federal government debacle. We have seen now the federal government approaching the industrial court to find out the legality or otherwise, and now even SERAP and some students who have been affected by this strike that is going on to 7 months now, equally dragging the federal government. So it seems like the judiciary will have to be the decider at the end of the day.
I think the federal government, from that report, didn't go to court. It is within the right and responsibility of the Minister of Labour under the Trade Dispute Act to actually refer a matter to the industrial court for resolution in the way and manner he has done. Now, and in my thinking, I think it's coming too late. To allow a strike to linger for 6 months before approaching, he had even the powers under the Labour Act and under the Trade Dispute Act to actually give directives that will resolve this matter. He hasn't done well to have taken this long before referring the matter to the industrial court. The unfortunate thing is that the industrial court has given several orders declaring strikes like this one to be illegal, and they were not obeyed and they were not actually enforced. So again, I keep maintaining that the unions are so powerful, and until they decide willingly to obey the provisions of the law and orders of court, the government might find it difficult to actually bring them to compliance. In that case, under the military, the simple thing they did was just to proscribe such unions and then make such decrees asking them to go back to work.
NEPA 11?
Exactly.
And they were jailed.
They sent them to prison.
They were jailed.
And somehow, even though we are in a democracy, sadly, it appears that there is the maturity to operate a democracy is not there, especially among those who are outside the executive.
Just like the TCN debacle, shutting down the entire country, putting it in darkness. Come and write exams for promotion. You said no, you are not going to write exams, and you switched off.
That obviously resembled an act of terrorism under the Terrorism Act. But you see, the reason why labor unions grew to become this powerful is because we have had a government that has actually acquiesced and so afraid to actually deal with the matter. We saw Margaret Thatcher in the United Kingdom taking on the co-workers and stuck to the law, and it turned out that the government won. It didn't matter whether they won, and then Britain became richer and better, and then the economy became more modern. So you can't allow people who are driven by personal interest.
But the average Welshman will not support it. Will not support
because it looked like they were accused of.
All right, thanks so very much, Frank Tietie, lawyer and human rights activist, Arise News analyst, for coming to shed some light on these developments.